Hello, and thank you once again for joining me for the Darren Chatter solo cast, where I read the blogs that I write to you and save you the trouble of reading them yourself. This is blog number 255, entitled Ruthless Minimalism. There is a real case to be made for minimalism as a lifestyle. I have learned this from a couple of angles, which I will explain as we go throughout this blog. Suffice to say, we as consumers, and particularly American consumers, are highly guilty of purchasing things that we want versus need, or the newest version of something despite the fact that a slightly older model is working just fine. It is a sickness to a degree, especially given the financial consequences. If you have read any of my other posts on personal finance, you are probably at least familiar with the names Dave Ramsey and Chris Hogan. They work together and they're always preaching this truth. Don't go broke trying to look rich. If you aren't familiar with one or both of those guys, I highly recommend that you look them up and start digging into the material that they share. It has helped my life and my financial destiny, to say the least. I have openly shared my debt journey and recovery in multiple different blogs and videos. I want to make sure people understand how easy it is to fall into the traps of credit cards, car leases, and other pitfalls the consumption-based world we live in encourages. I was guilty of this, and I dug a debt hole that I was not sure I could ever get out of. Please, learn from my mistakes. Stop buying stuff to impress people that you don't even know. No one really cares what kind of car you drive. If that's a criteria for a friendship or dating someone, you better look for other options. One other note, as I used to be in the moving business, or I like to flower it up and make it sound a whole lot cooler, the relocation business, I did work on the relocation side for the corporate world, and let's not kid ourselves, I still was a salesman for a moving company. Anyway, going to people's homes on moving day, whether it was move in or move out, was part of my job. And it was amazing to me how often people had so much stuff that was still in boxes from the last time that they moved. Items that they had not used or clearly did not need, but they were not going to leave them behind. They were possessions and things that one time held some level of importance to them. I hate to break it to you, but 90% of the things that you own are easily replaceable, and they are sucking cash out of your wallet, and in some cases, you are paying interest on those items that you have to have. Now, they live in a box in your garage, never to see the light of day. Believe it or not, some people rent storage units to keep more crap than they can fit in their house. Absolutely pointless, to say the least. I have 4 different family members who are currently in the process of moving this year, which sort of puts me back into the moving business as I get recruited to help in one way or another with each one of them. All of them, regardless of income level, age, other demographics, have way too much stuff, in my opinion. Here's a great example. I made 3 trips to Goodwill this weekend with one of my family members who is out of time to exit their former residence. Suddenly, things that were somehow important before have no monetary value and are literally getting dropped off at a place who will resell them to turn a profit. Another family member is in a major purge mode, and they are selling things on OfferUp and Craigslist for pennies on the dollar. They paid full price for those items, but now they are fire saling them just to make sure they downsize and make room in their new home. I do my best to not have much sentimentality when it comes to items of family members. I have only a scant few photos and others over the years when I was moving myself, and I was able to weed these things out over time. Memories have far more value to me than an item ever could. There is nothing that I can think back on and say, man, I wish I still had blank. I personally was in a cycle of moving about once a year for almost a decade, and I had reason to travel light. I made my own life easier, And because I was bouncing from 1 or 2 bedroom apartments to another, I had limited space to store things anyway. Maybe that helped me form my opinion, but now that I am older and I have the means to accumulate more stuff, I have even less desire to do so. I am sticking with my ruthless minimalism mindset. My wife and I own a small house that we love. We bought this one by design. It is not larger. It's not a larger one with more rooms than we ever need, or just in case somebody visits. We have yet to have anyone who wanted to come visit us that was completely offended that we did not have room for them in our home. They stay at a hotel nearby or with someone else. And to be clear, in the 5 years that we lived in the house, this has occurred once. One time. That is not reason to have a 4-bedroom house fully furnished with lots of extra crap just in case somebody comes and visits. We also didn't choose to live in a highly upscale neighborhood either. Our neighborhood is great. It's near a coffee shop that I go to all the time. We walk to Sprouts and Whole Foods and other places very, very nearby. It's great. We love it. And we chose this location based on that set of criteria, not a better zip code or anything like that. That is all irrelevant in our minds. The backyard has fake grass and the front yard is maintained by the HOA. If you're paying attention here, you should be catching on to the fact that the theme here is easy, low maintenance, and worry-free living. And just as a side note, I am not the only one who thinks in this manner. If you have not seen the documentary Minimalism, I would highly recommend that you watch it. This is available on the hyperlink in my blog, or you can go to the trailer on YouTube and get a sense of this documentary film. The quick overview is basically 2 guys who had made it in the tech world and had nice cars, cool places to live in big cities, etc., etc. They both came to the conclusion that they were not happy despite having all of the trappings of the material world. So they decided to change all that, and thus the story begins. I can tell you from my own personal experience that clutter is visually disturbing to me. I find it mildly uncomfortable to see things that are piled up here and crammed into corners there. I feel like it weighs me down. As the old saying goes, the things you own end up owning you. I think this is particularly true when you are looking at financing those extra things that you don't really need. If you are house poor because you bought more house than you could really afford, this is a great example of what I'm talking about. And here's another question that nobody wants to face. What if things change? What if you get fired, you get really sick and you can't work, etc.? How are you going to make ends meet? We don't have to worry about this. I literally could deliver pizzas and cover the mortgage payment for our house if needed. Seriously. My wife is of the same mindset, which is a huge plus. I think it would be difficult and cause a lot of domestic strife if one of us was the opposite of in their thought process than the other. So make sure you choose your partner wisely. One last example to share, and this one's a doozy. A family member on my wife's side, who I was not close to, passed away last summer, and everyone was tasked with dealing with his estate. No one had been to his home way out in the hills north of Phoenix for many years, and when we first arrived, we were floored. The home looked abandoned, despite him living there right up until the day he died. It was filthy, and we all wore the good, high-quality N95 masks to go inside his home. He was a hoarder, and how anyone lived in those conditions is beyond what all of us could comprehend. He was not poor, so he had options to live elsewhere or in better conditions. We guess he got used to it, and due to the slow but steady accumulation of stuff, maybe he really didn't notice just how bad it was. In effort to get the place cleaned up and ready for resale, I and other family members were taking items out of the home and setting them out on the driveway. Everyone took what they wanted for themselves, but that barely put a dent in the overall pile of things. I asked what they were going to do with the other stuff, and somebody said, Take whatever you want. We're probably just going to donate it otherwise. Well, being the industrious individual that I am, I loaded up everything I could fit into my SUV. I had to clean up the items, but I put in the work and I got everything ready for resale on OfferUp. I made over $5,000 selling brand new items that were in beat up boxes. This person had bought multiple fans, heaters, catering items, and much, much more that was never touched. He had to have them for some reason, whether he was a compulsive buyer or what, no one is sure at this point. Think about that. I'm selling his items and making $5,000. Imagine what he spent on those items when they were new. My sweet spot for pricing these items to resell a brand new item on OfferUp was about 40% of the retail price for a brand new item. So based on that, he had spent well over $12,000 just on redundant items that never left the box. To put a little context next to that, I paid $10,000 for the vehicle that I drive. He spent $12,000 on fans and heaters that he never used. Again, he had the money. He was not extraordinarily wealthy, so these were really what it comes down to, bad financial decisions. And they possibly contributed to him living in the squalor that he did. Things that you own end up owning you. A while ago, my wife and I decided we would lean into the minimalism journey a lot harder. We purged a bunch of stuff of our own, taking clothes to a local charity and selling as many unneeded items as we could. With the money that we made reselling those items, we funded a vacation to Nashville. Not one of those things was replaced because we did not miss them or need it. Literally not one. Obviously, those items were extra, and we would rather have the money for the trip and the memories that we achieved on that trip versus having those things sitting around collecting dust and taking up space. I highly encourage you to look into some form of this lifestyle for multiple reasons. Less consumption of useless items is better for your personal finances, better for the environment, and I believe better for your psyche overall. It's like lifting a weight off of you when you do a purge of items around the house that no longer serve a purpose. The things you own end up owning you. You will feel lighter, you will have more room, and you will learn what's really important and what is just fluff. Our entire economy is built on the idea of fluff, of constant consumption, but that doesn't mean that you have to be complicit. It's your life. Do your own thing and make your own rules. High school is over. Stop putting so much value behind what you think others think of you. As always, I wish you luck in your endeavors.